Welcome back to NBA Cinema. So today we got Draymond Green finally speaking on the incident that occurred between himself, Rudy Gobert, which really started with Klay Thompson and Jaden McDaniels. You know, Rudy Gobert was going over to break up the altercation, but the argument for Draymond is get your own player if you're trying to break something up. Now, I remember back when LeBron went and grabbed Chris Paul instead of Rajon Rondo when they got into it. So, one thing I asked myself, if LeBron would have went and grabbed Klay, would Draymond have done that? Like, since that's the rule, right? Obviously not. We know he wouldn't. But I'm just pointing that out, to keep it consistent. At the same time, Rudy Gobert and those guys need to defend themselves a little better. Cat is just sitting there watching. 2 7-foot Teletubbies out there. He had him in the Melvin Jody stepdaddy chokehold, and he didn't do anything, right? He drug him, and Gobert just went with him. It was just wild, but we finally hear from Draymond and get his perspective on these things. Let's check it out.
Now, regarding the suspension itself and the incident itself, you've been very vocal of the Draymond rule that the league has, and the league has said back in April against the Kings when you were suspended that one game, and then this time that your past actions do carry weight when they're making these decisions regarding yourself. So I guess there's a two-part question of how do you feel about that? Do you see that happening with other players? And then I also asked my point B part of the question.
I'm not really one to sit and compare myself to other players because they're not me and I'm not them. So I'm not one to say, oh, man, you didn't do that to that guy. That's also hating. Where I grew up, you don't sit and talk about what another man got or he didn't get this or he got that, why I did not get that. I don't compare myself to other people or myself. So I never look at it in that light. I think, to continue mentioning like, oh, well, what he did in the past, I've paid for those. Like I got suspended in Game 5 of the finals. So you can't keep suspending me for those actions. But in saying that, I'm also not one to admit when I'm at fault, It is what it is. I think, for me, anytime there's a situation and a teammate needs you to come to their defense, I'm going to come to their defense, and that's just that, especially with someone that I've been playing with for 12 years. That's more than a teammate. That's a brother. And things can be interpreted how people interpret them. I'm not really here to judge people's interpretations or try to change them. They are what they are. But I know for me, I'm going to always be there for my teammates. And that's who I am. That's who I am as a teammate. That's who I am as a friend. If I'm your friend, I'm going to be there for you. Right, wrong, or indifferent. You look to your side, I'll be right there, if not in front of you. So that's just how I am. I think for me personally, I have to be on the court for my teammates. Our chances of winning drops dramatically if I'm not out there. So I have to be better at being there and as one of the leaders of this group. You just got to find different ways, And I think for me, that's the biggest lesson in all of it. Is just like, yeah, you got to be there for your teammate, but you have to do it differently. The same way you would do something when I was 26, I can't do at 33. And so that's kind of what it boils down to. And so I can be better there, and I will. Continue to grow through different things that you go through in life, and that's what I try to do with these situations. But I'll never sit and judge it based on this guy choked that person or this guy swung at him and what did they get. That I don't do that.
And you have sort of a history with Rudy Gobert. Did you see his comments after the whole tussle? And what do you think about what he said, if he did?
It's 2023. You see everything these days. What's my comment about what he said? No comment is a comment, right? All right, cool. I don't live my life with regrets. Like I said before, I'll come to a teammate's defense anytime that I'm in a position to come to a teammate's defense. That's what a team is. You stick together through the good and the bad. And I take that to heart. I take pride in being a good teammate. That's when I step in here every single day, that's number one on my list, to be a good teammate, number one. I think that takes care of a lot of things. So I take pride in that. And reflecting over on the whole incident, I think for me is, you kind of go through the whole gauntlet of everybody have opinion, and you listen to those opinions or not. Some people opinion I hear, some people opinion I don't, and I think for me and going through it is like what matters to me, and what matters to me is how the people that I care about feel. And then, like, what's my perspective? Like, how am I viewing this? How am I growing for this? I think everything you go through, there's a lesson in it. So am I getting the lesson or not? It's one of the biggest things for me. Is like, am I collecting the lesson that I need to collect from this? The reality is the lesson that people think you need to collect isn't hardly ever the lesson, because they know nothing about you. They know very little about situations. And so for me, I think it's always just trying to find what's the lesson that need to be collected.
So as we analyze Draymond Green's comments, he says there's Draymond rules in place to really pronounce his suspensions and push him to that next level, where as another player who isn't Draymond may get less for the same offense. And he says you can't punish me for past incidents, right? Unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast, especially, and I think, was it Reggie Miller? It was someone who was in the commentary booth a few times Draymond was getting ejected, and they were saying that when he antagonizes the crowd on the way out, where he's like raising the roof and telling them to boo him louder and all that, it looks like he's not taking the tech or the flagrant or whatever that got him ejected serious enough, so they want to make more of an example out of him. And that definitely plays into it too, how remorseful you've been in the past when you've been ejected. Now, I know many of us grew up, we saw combat during the games, right? We saw people get into it all the time. Jordan, Reggie Miller. I mean, you could go Derek Harper and JoJo English on the bench. We've seen hands get thrown on the basketball court, and we like that because it made it more competitive, right? No love lost basketball. I still feel like it's the best basketball. The league gradually has taken measures to move away from that. So when you start to have these incidents build up, and you're still going to have more altercations like this, but they want to minimize this because they are playing an emotional game and it's in real time. You want to see your players care that much. But I'm just saying the nature of how the league handles these matters and how much you get fined nowadays, people are trying to stay away from it. So when you see Draymond put someone in a chokehold now, that's just dangerous, for so many reasons. Like, we laughed at Gobert and the way that he didn't even try to fight back, didn't even attempt to. He could have fell back on Draymond and landed on top of him or anything to get some of that pressure off his neck, but he didn't do anything. But that's kind of dangerous, when you go airtight on someone's neck like that. He could have went and shoved him to the ground, anything. So, and him being Draymond Green, yes, that is a factor that plays into it. But why would it not be, if you look at it from the league office, right? You'd have to look at someone like that because he's kicked people in the private parts. I guess what Draymond should be looking at, and I guess the best way to gauge this is what happens to Dylan Brooks going forward. It's kind of the only person I can think of with his foul on GP2, his propensity to go below the belt, kick people there, swipe his hand down there. I'm looking to see what happens to him, when he continues to offend on that level too. I guess that would kind of be the only person I could think of right now that Draymond could look and say, look at him. He's had some history like I've had some history. What are you going to do about his suspension? So I guess that's what Draymond should look at. But yeah, absolutely. The league has worked hard to move away from fighting on the court. So Draymond's going to have to deal, man. Whether it's fair or unfair, you kind of can control what you can control, right? You can gauge how they're going to officiate you. And I also understand he's an emotional player. And if he can't be emotional, then it definitely takes away from what he is. He's going to have to learn to reel that in while still being effective with it, and helping his team win. Because like he says, he isn't out there. The team loses like their system with how long they've been together. You know what I'm saying? So they lose some of that leadership, telling people where to be on the defensive end. Different nuanced pieces of a team they lose when he's out. So yeah, we're gonna see how he handles this when he comes back, man. But let me know what you guys think about his comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till next time, peace.